Every day, millions of people wake up and step into a system they never agreed to. Same alarm, same rush, same routine. But here's the strange part. Most of them don't feel trapped. They feel like they're just living life, and that's exactly how the system works. Because what looks like freedom on the surface is actually a game with rules you were never taught. You enter it once, and it quietly shapes the next 30 to 40 years of your life. Not through force, but through routine. Not through chains, but through habits you never questioned. Wake up, work, earn, spend, repeat. A loop so consistent it starts to feel like identity. But every game has players, and every game has pieces, and most people are playing it like pawns. So the real question is not, why am I stuck? The real question is, who designed the game I'm playing? Because if you've never been taught the rules, you're not playing the game. You're being played by it. Most people believe they're just one paycheck away from freedom, but what if the system you trust is actually the trap keeping you broke? In this video, I'm going to show you the hidden money game you were never taught, one that could keep you stuck for life unless you break free. If this feels a little too real, comment pawn below. And if that question even crossed your mind, then you're already starting to see through the surface. Because what I'm about to show you next makes everything even harder to ignore. We live in the most prosperous era in human history. More wealth has been created in the last 50 years than in the previous 5,000 combined. And yet, most people today are exhausted, anxious, and financially fragile, working harder every single year, but somehow ending up further behind. So, how does that make sense in a world overflowing with money? Here's the part nobody really explains. It's not that you're lazy, and it's not that you're unlucky. It's that the system you're inside was never designed to make you free. It was designed to make you productive. And that difference quietly decides everything. Because once you zoom out, it starts to feel less like individual struggle and more like something structured, like you're moving through a set of rules you never got to read. And if no one ever taught you how those rules work, then you've been playing the game blind, reacting, adapting, surviving, like a piece on a board being moved without realizing there's a player at all. And once you see it that way, you can't unsee it. The rat race is not a metaphor. It is a mechanism, a loop so deeply ingrained we stop questioning it. Go to school, get a job, earn wages, pay expenses, repeat. Every raise gets swallowed by a new expense. Every windfall erased by a new debt. You run faster, work harder, and the finish line keeps moving. 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck. And shockingly, 1 in 10 people earning over $100,000 a year still runs out of money before the month ends. This is not an income problem. This is a system problem, and the system is working exactly as designed. Because a person who is always one step behind never has the margin to question the game. They're too busy surviving it. The pawn doesn't know it's a pawn. That's what makes the trap so effective. Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding." The first move toward financial freedom is not a budget. It is seeing clearly. And what I'm about to show you next is where most people finally realize they've been playing the wrong game their entire life. So, how does the loop stay closed? Consumption. From the moment you were old enough to watch a screen, you were taught what to do with money. Spend it, upgrade it, signal it. The car you drive, the phone in your hand, the vacation you post online. These are not just purchases. They are the mechanism. Advertisers built a science around your desire. Credit cards made spending frictionless. Social media made it competitive. And quietly, you built a lifestyle that consumes every dollar you earn just to maintain itself. Here is the brutal truth. If every dollar you earn gets converted into consumption, you have nothing left to build with. Not one asset working for you while you sleep. Not $1 compounding in the background. Just the wheel, spinning faster and faster, feeling like living, producing nothing. The consumption trap is dangerous because it feels like reward, but the wealthy learn to ask a different question before every purchase. Not, can I afford this? But, what does this cost me in future freedom? The pawn is always one unexpected expense away from being taken off the board entirely. Luke 16:11 asks, "If you have not been faithful with worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? Stewardship is not restriction. It is the discipline that creates room for something greater. Be honest. What's the one thing you've been spending on that you know is keeping you stuck? Drop it in the comments. Now, before we go further, the foundation matters. You face your numbers. Every dollar in, every dollar out, written down, looked at honestly. You build a budget that works, 50% to essentials, 30% to your life, 20% directly to your future, paid first before anything else touches it. You build an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, liquid and untouched. Not a goal, a non-negotiable. And you attack high-interest debt with everything you have, because debt at 20% interest is a guaranteed negative return on everything you own. This is financial defense. It is absolutely necessary. But here is what nobody tells you about defense. It keeps you alive. It does not move you forward. You can budget brilliantly, cut ruthlessly, save faithfully, and still never build wealth, because cutting has a floor. You cannot spend less than zero. But building, there is no ceiling. The pawn that only defends never advances. It survives. But surviving was never the point. Proverbs 21:5 reminds us, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit. Defense is diligence. It is the table." But God never called you to sit at an empty table. Here is the shift that changes everything. Wealth is not built by managing what leaves your hands. It is built by multiplying what you own. Your employer pays you a salary, but before they pay you, they sell your output for more than they pay you for it. That gap is profit, and someone captures it. The question is who? There are 4 kinds of people in the financial world. Employees who trade time for wages, the self-employed who trade their own time for higher wages, business owners whose systems generate income without their personal hours, and investors whose capital works while they sleep. The first 2 work for money. The second 2 have money working for them. School-produced workers, brilliant, disciplined, credentialed workers. Because workers are what the system needs, not owners, not builders, workers. And so, we learn to write resumes but not read financial statements. We learn to earn raises but not build equity. The pawn that learns it can become something more does not abandon the board. It crosses it deliberately, one move at a time, until it can move in any direction it chooses. Matthew 25 is not just a parable. It is a financial principle. Resources buried produce nothing. Resources deployed multiply. You were not given gifts, time, and capacity to preserve them safely. You were given them to build with. Now, what I'm going to show you next is how the wealthy actually multiply money while everyone else is still trying to save it. The wealthy are not smarter or luckier than you. They simply learned rules you were never shown. Compounding. Your money earns returns, those returns earn returns, and over time the growth stops looking like a line and starts looking like a rocket. Time is the multiplier, and it cannot be bought back, which means starting now always beats starting later. Leverage. The wealthy do not scale by working more hours. They build systems. Businesses, teams, digital products, properties that generate income beyond what any single person's time could produce. Ownership. Wages are earned, taxed, and spent. But equity appreciates, compounds, and generates income without being consumed. Ownership is the only financial vehicle with no speed limit. Taxes. Workers pay the highest rates in the code. Owners and investors pay dramatically less, legally because the tax system was written to reward those who build and own. Multiple income streams. The average millionaire has 7, not 7 jobs, 7 sources of value, so that when one slows, 6 others flow. These rules are not secret. They are simply not taught, because a population that understands them makes different choices. The pawn that discovers the full rulebook realizes there were moves available the whole time that nobody mentioned. Ecclesiastes 11. To prescribe diversification thousands of years before modern finance named it. The wisdom was always there. The question is whether we reach for it. If this is making sense so far, you'll want to stay till the end, because the final shift is what actually separates people who stay stuck from those who break out. So here is where it all lands. The rat race does not end by running faster. It ends the moment you step back, look at the board, and ask, Who built this and why? You were placed on it before you were old enough to question it, handed a limited set of moves, and told that following them faithfully was the path to freedom. But you are allowed, at any point, to learn new ones. The shift from pawn to architect does not require a perfect plan. It requires a decision. Start with the audit, every dollar on paper today. Build the budget, eliminate the debt, create the cushion, then redirect every surplus dollar toward production, a business, an investment, an asset, an income stream that works while you rest. Learn compounding, understand leverage, study how ownership is taxed differently than wages. Build your first additional stream, then your second. You do not need to see the whole board. You need to make the next move, the pawn that advances faithfully, one square at a time, all the way to the other side, transforms. Not because something dramatic happened, but because it kept moving when everything told it to stay still. You were not created to be managed. You were not given a mind and a spirit and the capacity to build so that you could spend it executing someone else's vision while yours waits. Jeremiah 29:11 declares that God's plans for you are plans for a future, plans for hope, plans to prosper and not to harm. That promise was never conditional on your current bank balance. But plans require participants. The board is set. The next move is yours. If you got value from this, subscribe and stay connected. I break down real financial principles like this every week to help you move from survival to ownership.